Okay. Do you want to kick us off, Stephanie?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, welcome to this webinar on ACE in the Data School application. Like Luke said, it's so nice to see so many of you join us and to see so many familiar names and recognize some faces there as well. So welcome. What we'll do before we get started is we'll just spend a couple of minutes just introducing ourselves. And then what I'll do is I will provide you with a brief overview on what the Data School is and what we offer as a potential employer. And then I'll hand over to Luke, who will go through some example dashboards and visualizations and talk a little bit more about best practice in terms of data visualization and what we're looking for in a successful application. So Luke, I'll hand back to you and let you introduce yourself.
Okay, hi everyone. Hopefully we will have met in real life with a few of us at our meet and greet last week. It was a really fun event. If you didn't make that one, then we're going to run another one in a couple of months' time. All the details are on our website in the events section. So my role within the Information Lab and the Data School is Global Head of Recruitment. I've been doing this role for around 4 years now, and it's kind of evolved over time. I joined the company actually 8 years ago as a consultant. So I was a consultant for about 4 years, specializing in Tableau and Alteryx, the two main tools that we use at the Information Lab, supporting those clients who buy licenses from us. So on the Information Lab side of the business, we sell licenses for Tableau, Alteryx, Snowflake, and AWS. And for those clients, we also offer some consulting services and training, that sort of thing. So I did that for about 4 years, worked with lots of different clients. And prior to that, I was a client of the Information Lab. So I started off in banking when I finished university, did that for about 7 or 8 years, and then had enough of the city and moved into doing analytical roles in higher education. Which is where I came across the Information Lab. And in my previous job, the Information Lab were the consultants that we used to help with Tableau. And as the company's expanded, a few of us got to kind of try our hands at different things. I'd not done recruitment before, but I used to teach a lot of Tableau in my spare time when I didn't have client work as a consultant through contacts when I worked in higher education. And that's me, really. I'll pass you over to Stephanie now.
Thank you, Luke. So as you know, my name is Stephanie and I'm a recruitment specialist at the Data School in London. So I work very closely with Luke as part of the recruitment team. I'm more recent to the Data School. So I joined the Data School earlier this year in March. And my role at the Data School is essentially to support applicants and potential applicants through the application process, from them submitting their initial application with us right through to the final interview and offer stages. My background is slightly different, so I'm not from a tech background. So my background is in human resources and recruitment, and then prior to that I worked as a secondary school teacher. Sorry, could I just remind you, please, to put yourself on mute if you're not already on mute? Thank you very much. So that's a brief kind of intro to who I am. So moving on to the Data School then, and what the Data School is. So as you can see from our logo there in the top right, so the Data School is powered by an organization called the Information Lab. And as Luke's already mentioned, one of the main purposes of the Information Lab is to sell licenses primarily for Tableau and Alteryx. And we are gold partners with Tableau and Alteryx, and also partners with Snowflake and AWS. And the Information Lab also has a small team of consultants, so they are permanent employees at the Information Lab, and they undertake shorter term placements with a number of different clients. So the Information Lab was founded in 2010, and then 5 years later in 2015, the Data School came into existence. And the Data School was partly introduced to address the skills shortage within data analytics. And the data school then, so it is a data analytics consultancy. And what we do is we recruit 8 people every 2 months. So that's 6 cohorts a year. And we're looking to increase that to 9 cohorts per year from next year, so in 2024. And what we offer the people who join us is a 28-month fixed term contract. And that begins with a 4-month initial training period. And that training all takes place in our offices in central London. So we're in a really great location between Bank and St. Paul's. So there's a lot going on within the area. And it's also really easy to reach. But like I say, it is in person. So you would need to be able to commute to and from our offices for those 4 months in the first instance. Within that first 4-month training period, we'll teach you everything that you need to know so that you are able to go out and confidently complete your first placement. As we've already mentioned, so Tableau and Alteryx are the main tools that we use. So Tableau, as you're probably aware, is a data visualization tool. And then Alteryx is more of a data manipulation, data cleansing, kind of data prep tool. So they're the 2 main tools that we focus on within that training period. But we also do now some Power BI, and there are some other softwares that we touch upon as well within those first 4 months. The training period is delivered by our coaching team. We've got around 6 coaches now, and many of those are experts within the field. They've been recognized by Tableau and Alteryx as being either Tableau visionaries or Alteryx aces, which means that they are contributing to the wider tech community. You'll also be encouraged to complete some professional certifications within the training period, certainly in Tableau and Alteryx, and we'll also support you with any others that you wish to complete throughout the 28-month contract. Following on from that initial 4-month training period, our consultants then go on to complete 4 6-month placements, and you can see that they're illustrated on the screen. And those placements are completed with a range of different clients, many companies there that you would be familiar with, and there are just some examples in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. So some examples, so you've got Deloitte, Schroders, UBS, PwC is also one of the largest clients that we work with, so lots of recognizable names. And we also work with some charities, so I believe the National Trust is a charity, and also some educational institutions, so some universities, some sports companies, so a few Premier League football clubs, and more recently Wimbledon, and there are a huge number there, so a huge range that you can see there, and there are even more than you can see there on the screen as well. The placements themselves, so the majority of our clients, they are based within London. We often get asked whether or not you're able to work remotely or if it's all in person. The answer to that is that it depends very much on the client whom you're placed with, and you are expected as a consultant at the client to essentially adopt their normal working practices. So if their employees are required to go in 5 days per week to the offices, it's likely that you would be expected to do the same, but we're not seeing so much of that at the moment. The majority of our clients operate on a hybrid basis, so it might be that you're expected to go into their offices, so 2 or 3 days a week, and then spend the rest of the time either working from home, or alternatively, you are able to work out of our offices at the data school as well. Since we started then in 2015, we've established an international presence, so in both the US and in Germany, so New York and Hamburg, and we've seen now over 400 consultants successfully complete the 28-month program. That means that we've got an ever-growing alumni network, and they're incredibly useful and beneficial in terms of helping our consultants find permanent employment following the completion of the 28-month contract. And typically speaking, at the end of those 28 months, we see our consultants go one of 3 ways. So they can either apply to join part of our permanent team at the Information Lab. Alternatively, they may be offered permanent employment by one of the clients that they've been working with. within the 28 months. Alternatively, like I say, they might go their own way, find their own employment, and there are plenty of jobs out there being advertised at the moment for people with an expertise in Tableau and Alteryx. One other important thing that is crucial, and you're probably interested in knowing, the whole contract is paid. So you're paid from day one of the training period right through to the end of your final placement. And the starting salary is £35,000 per year. You'll be paid that up until the end of your second placement. And then the salary increases to £40,000 per year for placements 3 and 4. I'm just going to go on now to talk a little bit about the application process. As I'm sure many of you are aware already, our application process is slightly different, and it's probably quite different to any other application process that you've been through before. So although you are able to submit a CV when you apply to join the data school, it's not something that is required, and it's not something that we use in terms of forming our decisions and forming our judgments. But what we do ask you to do is familiarize yourself with Tableau, which, like I say, is one of the main tools that we use, and to create a dashboard using Tableau that you'll then go on to submit to us. So I'll just go on to speak a little bit about that now, and talk you through the steps that you'll need to take to create your dashboard and then submit that to us. So the first thing that you will need to do is join Tableau and to set yourself up on Tableau. So you can get a 2-week free trial for Tableau Desktop, or if you're currently a student, you can get a 1-year free license for Tableau Desktop. So if that is something that's applicable to you, it is worth making the most of that and taking advantage of that. Otherwise, you can also access a free version of Tableau, and that is more than enough in terms of enabling you to create your application dashboard. You don't need to be paying to use Tableau in order to apply to join the data school, which is why we use Tableau as opposed to Alteryx. You don't need to know how to use Alteryx prior to applying to us. It's something you might want to look into yourself just to familiarize yourself with it, but you don't need to have any prior knowledge or experience using Alteryx to apply and to join the data school. So Tableau is our focus. So once you have downloaded either Tableau Desktop or Tableau Public and created an account there, you'll also want to create an account, like I say, on Tableau Public. It's a really great tool, and I'll speak to you a little bit more about that shortly. And you also might want to join the Tableau community forums at the same time. It's a really great place for you to find the answers to some of the questions that you might be looking for in the first instance, and to get some support and some help from other members of the community. So once you've set yourself up on Tableau, the next thing that you'll want to do before you start creating your own dashboard is seek some inspiration yourself, have a look at what other people have done using Tableau. And there are a few places you can go to find this. The first is Tableau Public, which I have just mentioned. And I'm just going to show you now what Tableau Public looks like, if you'll just bear with me. So this here is Tableau Public, and hopefully you can all see that okay. So Tableau Public often has, so it will always have so a viz of the day, and these are some really impressive and technically skillful dashboards, and they're worth looking at to get some inspiration. The other thing that you can do using Tableau Public is search for different topics. So you might search for a topic that's of interest to you. So for example, the Olympics. And you'll see a huge range of different dashboards come up here. You can then click on those, take a look at those in more detail. You can also download them. You can look at a little bit more depth then at what someone has done when creating their dashboard, and you can try to reverse engineer and recreate different elements for yourself. So Tableau Public is a really great resource and a really great way to find some inspiration in the first instance. The other page that I really strongly recommend that you check out is our successful applications page on our own website. And here you'll find all of the successful applications and dashboards that have ever been submitted to the data school. So you can see what everyone else has done for their application and what they've submitted when they've applied to join the data school. Again, you can access their individual Tableau public profiles. So you can see here all of the work that Asha has produced. Incidentally, her most recent dashboard here was recently voted as Viz of the Day. And again, you can download those, reverse engineer those, try to recreate some of those dashboards and visualizations within those dashboards as well. Looking at the successful applications page not only helps you in terms of getting some inspiration, but it will also enable you to get a better understanding of what it is that we're looking for in a successful application dashboard as well. And Luke will go into some of those in a little bit more detail later on and show you some more of those. And it's also a really great way for you to benchmark your own application. So you can compare what you've produced with those other successful applicants and see whether or not there's anything else that you could do to improve your dashboard. Another good way to get some inspiration is through Makeover Monday. Makeover Monday is something that you may have heard of and be familiar with already, and it is led by our global head coach, so Andy Kriebel, and it is a weekly social data project. So on the Makeover Monday website, Andy releases a new data set each week, so you don't need to go searching for your own data set. So you'll be able to access that, and then what you'll need to do is create a visualization using that data set. You can also again search Tableau Public, search Makeover Monday to see what other people have done using that same data set, and you can also search Twitter using the hashtag Makeover Monday, and again you'll be able to see what other people have done using that same data set. And it's a really great way for you to get some practice in as well, and for you to continue to develop your Tableau skills. So you've joined Tableau, you've downloaded the Tableau desktop or Tableau Public, set yourself up on the community forums, you've taken a look at Tableau Public Gallery, you've taken a look at our successful applications, and maybe you started practicing a little bit using Makeover Monday. The next thing that you'll need to do is choose your data set for your dashboard, for your application dashboard. Sorry, if you've just joined the call, would you mind just popping yourself on mute? Thank you. So once you, so in terms of choosing a data set, there are lots of different places that you can go to find your data set. So as I've mentioned, Makeover Monday has some data sets that are easily and readily accessible to you. The website kaggle.com is also a really great place for you to find some data sets on a huge range of different topics. Also our own website and Tableau itself has some data sets that you're able to download and use as well. There are some other websites that you might want to consider as well. So for example, gov.uk. But what you'll need to be doing is choosing your own data set, thinking about what data set it is that you're going to be wanting to use to create your own application dashboard. And the main piece of advice that we would give you when choosing your data set is to choose a data set on a topic that you are genuinely interested in. And that can be anything. So we've seen dashboards on politics, sport, TV, popular culture. The main thing is that you're interested in it. And that's because if you're interested in the data set that you're working with, then you're more likely to want to spend time working with it, and you're more likely to produce a dashboard of a high quality in the end. It also means that you're more likely to have a better understanding of what it is that you're looking for in a particular data set, helping you to develop your analysis. The other thing to mention in terms of data set, please don't use the free Tableau Superstore data set that comes with Tableau. We would really encourage you to use a data set that is based on real data, so that's not fictional. It will make it easier for you to work with as well. So there's nothing off limits apart from the Tableau Superstore data set, which we would recommend against using. So you've chosen your data set. The next thing for you to do is to get started on your dashboard, to get started on your Viz. And there are a number of different resources available to you out there. to help you with your Tableau skills. So like I've mentioned already, Makeover Monday is a great place for you to start to get some practice in. There are also a number of YouTube channels, and the other thing that is worth checking out and worth looking at is the blog page on our website. And if you go to the blog page on our website, you'll be able to search on a particular topic, and you'll be able to get some advice there. So for example, you might be wanting to find out how to use containers more effectively. So you just need to go to the blogs page, search containers, and you'll be able to find some advice. You can also find some advice on our applications process and get some tips and tricks from our current data schoolers through the blogs page as well. So once you've created your viz, the next thing that you'll want to do is choose your cohort and share it with us. And you'll be able to do that through the apply page on our website. So once you go to the apply page, you'll just need to scroll down to submit your application. And you'll see here all the cohorts that we're currently recruiting for. So the next cohort is due to start on the 2nd of October, and the closing date for that cohort is on the 3rd of August. Some of you I know may have submitted an application for that already and are already partway through the process. The next cohort is due to start on the 4th of December, and similarly, the closing date for that is a couple of months before that start date, so on the 5th of October. And you'll just need to click apply now to the cohort that you're interested in joining and work your way through this portal. And you'll be asked to share a link within that portal to your dashboard on Tableau Public. Once you've submitted your application, that will come through to either myself or Luke. And the first thing that we'll do is provide you with a couple of rounds of feedback on your dashboard. And the purpose of that is twofold, really. So it's partly to see how you respond to feedback. As a data analytics consultant, so working with a client, you'll be getting feedback from your client all the time. So it's important that you understand and that you know and you are able to demonstrate how you are able to respond to that feedback. The other side of us providing you with some feedback is that it enables us to give you a better understanding of what it is that we're looking for within your dashboard, and what it is that you can do to improve your dashboard and increase your chances of going through to the next round. It ultimately also enables you to develop your own Tableau skills and to grow your skills using Tableau. So once you've received your feedback, once you've responded to your feedback, if you've responded well, if your dashboard is to a high enough standard, then what we'll do is we'll put you through to the next stage, which is a video call with one of our coaches. And that video call normally lasts around half an hour. And you'll be asked to demo your dashboard, so talk us through your dashboard. And you'll be given about 5 minutes to do that. And then what will follow are some standard interview questions. If you're successful following on from the video call, then what we'll do next is we'll put you through to what we call final interviews. And those final interviews all take place at the same time, about 6 weeks before the cohort start date. And about 10 days prior to your interview taking place, what we do is we send out the same data set to all candidates who are through to final interviews, and we'll ask you to produce a dashboard using that data set. What we'll also do is we'll pair you up with one of our current data school consultants, and they'll be able to help you out with your dashboard, provide you with some feedback and some advice, and they'll also be able to answer any questions that you might have about the role. When you come in to interview with us, and that will be in person, you'll be given again 5 minutes to talk us through your final dashboard, and then we'll ask you some further interview questions. And what we're looking for within that final interview is that you've got a good understanding of what it means to be a data analytics consultant. So just to summarize then, in order to apply to join us, the first thing that you'll need to do really is find a data set that you are passionate about. This is something that I've spoken about already, but this just highlights the importance of that and stresses just how important it is that you are choosing a data set on a topic that you are interested in. The next thing that you'll need to do is to create a Tableau dashboard. Make sure that you're familiar with Tableau best practices. Make sure you're using the resources that are available out there. to you to help you develop your skills and make sure your insights are clear. And there are different ways that you can highlight the key insights within your dashboard that we'll show you later on as well. Another tip here, make sure that you submit your application to us early. Don't wait until the closing date to do that. We normally advise that you submit your dashboard at least 2 weeks prior to the deadline. And that's so that there's sufficient time for us to provide you with some feedback on your dashboard and for you to make any amendments and improvements to your dashboard prior to the final deadline. So like I say, make sure you're submitting your dashboard early and at least a couple of weeks prior to the closing date for each cohort. As you've seen, you can already apply for the cohort in December. So the sooner you do that, the sooner we'll be able to provide you with some feedback. But equally make sure you are happy with your dashboard before you do send it through to us. And then finally, what you'll need to do is revise your dashboard based on the feedback that we provide. This needs to be done before the closing date for each cohort. But other than that, we don't provide you with a deadline. We recognise people have other jobs at the moment or families at the moment. So we don't give you and prescribe you with a deadline for you to respond to that feedback. So do spend some time working on that feedback. Make sure you're asking us if there's anything that you're not sure about as well. So in terms of the dashboard that you submit, there are 3 main elements really that we are looking at. The first of those is the visualization itself. So again, we're looking to see that you've got a good understanding of best practice in terms of data visualization. And that includes things like, for example, ensuring that you define the purpose of your dashboard and that you provide the user with some context for your dashboard. We always tell you to imagine that the user has zero knowledge of the subject that you've chosen. So make sure that it is clear to them. And you can do that using titles, for example, so making sure that your dashboard's got a really clear title at the very top, and also making sure that the titles for each of the different sections of your dashboard are clear as well, and provide the user with an indication of what your dashboard or each section is going to be about. Questions normally work well as titles, as they allow the user to then look at your analysis and your charts as answers to those questions. You can also use bands or KPIs at the very top of your dashboard. You'll need to include a little bit of text as well. Often I think very brief intro at the top of your dashboard works well. So just 1 or 2 lines. With text, it's about a balance. We don't want to see too much text, but you will undoubtedly need a little bit to provide that context and then also to add to your analysis. Also make sure that your tooltips are formatted as well, and you can use those to help the user really understand what your dashboard is showing, what your charts are showing as well. So we're also looking at your use of colour, how you're using colour, making sure that you're using that effectively, so not having too many different colours, making sure that you're not using the same colours to represent different things. We're also looking for an element of interactivity within your dashboard. And we're also looking to see that you're able to use the right charts for your visualizations. So for example, that you're not using pie charts when there are too many different sections. And often a bar chart is more preferable. We're also looking to see that your visualization has been structured and laid out appropriately, that there are clear sections and that the spacing between the different elements of your dashboard have been considered. So making sure that there isn't too much empty space between the different elements, and also making sure that your dashboard isn't looking too cramped and too cluttered. And you can use things like padding and empty containers to increase that white space between the different elements of your dashboard. So we're firstly looking at the visualization itself. The next thing that we really want to see within your dashboard is your analytical side. So this is your opportunity to really show us your analytical side. And it's something that we're looking for within a successful applicant. And we're looking for 2nd and 3rd order analysis. So that means that we're looking for you to tell us not only what your charts are showing, but also why your data might be presenting in the way that it is. We also want you to move on to third order analysis and try to consider that as well. So considering the so what or what the impact is as a result of your first and second stage analysis. And we're also looking for you to tell us a story through your analysis. And that's thinking about things like the order in which you present your charts and really making sure that you're taking the user on a journey through your charts and through your analysis. This one I've mentioned already, so we're also looking to see how you respond to the feedback that we provide. Do make sure you respond, and we receive a lot of applications. We provide some feedback and people don't respond to that. So the most important thing here is that you are responding to that feedback, that you are considering, that you're really reading our feedback, considering what we have said, that you're questioning if anything is unclear to you, and that you're making changes appropriately to your dashboard. As I've said already, we don't provide you with a deadline in terms of responding to your feedback other than that final closing date for each cohort. So do take your time, don't rush through the feedback that we've given you. There's no need to. We're really looking for you to make some kind of changes and to show that you've put some thought and time into those changes as well. So what I'll do now is I will hand over to Luke, and Luke's going to go through some dashboard examples and to show you a little bit more about what works well in a dashboard and perhaps what also maybe doesn't work so well.
Thanks, Stephanie. I'm just going to share my screen now. Here we are. Someone just confirm that you can see my screen.
Yeah, that's fine, Luke.
Cool, okay. So I thought it would be useful to start off by showing a dashboard which I would consider to be lacking in certain kind of analytical elements. And I've chosen this one here. I'm actually going to, before I go through the summaries, I'm going to just go through and go to it. So to give you guys an idea as to the thought process that Stephanie and I go through when we're assessing these dashboards, I thought I'd kind of give some live critique here of this particular dashboard. And we see quite a few dashboards like this come in. So I'm going to make this full screen. Here we go. So imagining I've just seen this, my first thought is that, okay, it's about volcanoes, but the title is just volcanoes. It's not particularly intuitive, it's not particularly informative, and it doesn't really set the scene. So plus it's not very big as well. It's hidden across one of those charts. So really with your dashboards, I would encourage you to have really big main titles, but also make them a bit more focused. So if you're looking at a particular angle of analysis, then include that. And you also, as Stephanie said, it's a good idea to ask questions, and that can be in your main title as well as your chart titles as well. At the moment, this is kind of vague. I haven't really dived into it, but I can tell that it's vague based on the titles. So where are the volcanoes located? Let's have a look. As I hover over these points, I can see that we have an explosivity index, VEI. Now, again, there's no context about what that is. What is the unit of measurement of the VEI? In fact, what actually is it? It's not been outlined anywhere. So I would say provide some context around each chart. If there's any terminology contained within your data that you believe people might struggle with or might not understand, then make sure you explain that. And you can use things like information buttons to hide those definitions, so you're not clogging up the dashboard with too much text, but it is there for people to look at. I would also say that with this, we have the country, but we also have the latitude and the longitude as well in the tooltip. Now, unless you're a mapping expert, the latitude and longitude probably is meaningless to you. So we're including information here which most people probably won't get anything out of. And it's here in situations like this where we need to consider everything that we're adding in. You could put yourself in the position of being a data school consultant out with clients and producing content for those clients. Now, your dashboards likely are going to be interpreted or consumed by people at a variety of levels throughout an organization. So in this situation, we don't have any bands, big ass numbers, which the definition I put in the chat just now. So these are really headline figures. So if you imagine a business, you've got senior people who probably want to come in and consume the data analysis that you are producing. However, as you go up in an organization, the less time people tend to have. So some people are logging in, looking at your analysis and wanting a top level summary of how, the situation of whatever it is that you're analyzing. So in this situation, we could have how many active volcanoes there are, maybe how many deaths there have been, how many injuries, or when the year with the most volcanic eruptions, something like that. 3 or 4 key headline figures at the top to set the scene for your analysis, which you will then break down further, because as you go towards more junior people in an organization, those are the people generally who are more likely to dive in and really explore the nuts and bolts of what it is that you've created. So it's a good idea to go from a high level of granularity at the top through to more granular information as you go through. Okay, so less granularity through to more granularity in a kind of structured way. Also, kind of speaking as I'm looking at this dashboard, these charts don't really guide the user through whatever it is that the author is trying to get at. It seems to be a very high level summary. This isn't really telling me anything about the analytical side of the person who created it. Okay, it's a summary of information. The burden for performing this analysis is on me as the end user. Now, that will lead me to make assumptions about what it is that I'm looking at. I'm not a volcano expert by any means. So another good piece of advice is to think that the person that is consuming your analysis doesn't know anything about the subject. Okay, so make sure everything is as clear as possible. And this has also got real life implications as well. So we work with a lot of clients who have potentially thousands of Tableau users across their organization. If you produce something that isn't clear, you're going to get a ton of emails from people asking you to make it clearer. Okay, and that's going to really ruin your day, because you're going to get hundreds of emails potentially from people saying, sorry, can you just clarify this? What does this mean? I don't understand this. And you're going to have to reply to all of them. So make it as clear as possible. Another thing I've just spotted here in this top right bar chart is we have some double encoding happening. Double encoding is where we're repeating information, and you can treat your screen real estate or the space that you have available to you as limited. So here we don't want to be duplicating information, and we have labels on the bars showing the value, but we also have an axis underneath showing the scale. Choose one or the other. My personal preference, and it is entirely subjective, is to use labels on a bar chart like this. I think it's pretty clear. It also frees up a little bit of space as well by not including an axis. So think about that. We've included, you could actually say this is triple encoded as well, this bar chart, because we also have the value on the color as well. You can see we have the intensity of colors going from dark at the top one down to light yellow for Merapi, this bottom value. Again, that's unnecessary. Bar charts are really effective at showing value. We interpret length very effectively very efficiently as humans. So really, we've got three things going on showing us the same information. We've got labels, color, and an axis. So I would suggest that you could color all the bars exactly the same, and you could lose the axis and just keep the labels. Always remember that with data visualization, it's a translation exercise of taking a complex set of data, so that could be a big spreadsheet or a database table, and you're making it as easy to understand for everyone as possible. Okay, so by repeating information, we are introducing extra things the user needs to think about. Other factors to look at here. So we have some more double encoding happening in the bottom left bar chart. We also have a diverging color scheme here. You can see some values are red and some values go through to a kind of gray scale. We do have a color legend there, but this is quite a common mistake as well. So diverging color schemes like this, where one end of the spectrum of color is completely different color to the other end, these are normally reserved or best used for where values cross zero. So you could have negative numbers in shades of red, for example, positive numbers in shades of gray. So it's a split defined by a threshold. Occasionally you do get analysis where there is a specific value other than zero, which should determine whether a value is one side of the spectrum or the other, in which case make sure you make a note of that and just tell the user exactly what it is that they're looking at. And then we have our timeline at the bottom here on the bottom right. We see a few things here which stand out. There are some peaks here, most notably in 1902. Now, when I look at this, not knowing anything about volcanoes, I look at that peak and I can see by hovering, it says in 1902, volcanoes caused 32,000 deaths. Now, that's great, but I can see that from the chart, but it's not telling me what made those deaths, why there was such a peak in 1902. Presumably there was a one or more catastrophic eruptions somewhere in the world, but I'm being left to guess at that. Really, you should be pointing that out as a key area of analysis here. Also on this particular dashboard, there are no instructions, so I don't know if there are any interactive features. I'm going to try clicking. Doesn't seem like there are, but I'd encourage you all to use the interactive features of Tableau if you can. It's really powerful and allows you to really delve into the detail in the data and ask questions of the data as well. Doesn't seem like there are any interactive features here, but if there were, I would really encourage you to make a note for people so they're not clicking around at random. You can have a little bit of text saying, click on a bar to filter map or something like that, just so you're guiding your user through your analysis. Also, there is some things you can do with text as well. I wouldn't encourage you to include really big paragraphs of text, but text can be really useful to help your user navigate through the journey of your analysis. Just a few lines here or there. Maybe there's some values you want to pull out of the charts. But an important thing to note with that really is that you are able to back up any statements you make in text from the charts. As soon as you start saying that some particular event has happened and that you can't see that in the chart, that's us taking your word for it. Okay, and you can put yourself in the scenario of being with a business. If you make statements about what's happening in the data without backing that up with the data itself, then you're going to get questions from that client because it's not going to be clear for them. So a good mindset to be in is to imagine you are producing a dashboard for a client and trying to anticipate some of the questions they may ask and ask yourself, is it as clear as it can be? A good way to sometimes get some extra help or feedback with this is to share your analysis with someone, maybe friend or family member who isn't familiar with data visualization. If they are able to understand what you've done or what you've produced within a reasonable amount of time, then you've probably done a good job. Further things with this dashboard, the tooltips aren't great. I'll show you some examples of formatted tooltips later. So tooltips are the information that appear when you hover over a particular chart or bar or element of a dashboard. People often ignore those. They can provide a really great finishing touch to the dashboard, and just shows that you've added in a bit of extra effort to make sure that everything is formatted nicely and it's all presentable. There's also no real conclusion to this dashboard either, so I'm not really sure what I should be taking away from it. So always make sure that what you are analyzing, the results of the analysis are clear. Okay, you should be summarizing what you've produced, pulling out and making obvious any important points, like what I talked about with the big spike in 1902, another one in 1985 as well. So make sure you do that. You can also experiment with different layouts. So this is a kind of, I guess, quartered layout here. You've got 4 charts. You can use a long form layout where you have vertical scrolling with the charts under each other. Vertical scrolling generally is fine. I would avoid horizontal scrolling because it's kind of counterintuitive, but vertical scrolling is generally okay, and it can help you navigate your user through through your dashboard. But really think about your analysis and how best to get out some insights and make them obvious to everyone else. So in terms of, this particular dashboard, it's very much a summary of the data, and we're not really learning anything about the author's analytical side. And remember, this is a side that we actively look at. We don't want people who just summarize data and show a top level. We want to see people who are able to really get into the main issues within a data set. And in this case, rather than just creating a summary of this data, what would have been a good idea is to focus in on a particular angle of analysis. So you're choosing an explanatory rather than an exploratory approach. So exploratory meaning, as in this particular dashboard, the user has to perform the analysis. An explanatory approach would be concentrating on a particular area. So maybe a particular area of the world has got an above average level of volcanic activity, maybe digging into that and finding out and explaining exactly why that's happened and the consequences of that as well, and maybe compare that region with other regions in the world, that sort of thing, rather than just summarizing the data. I've mentioned the diverging color scheme. The titles aren't very good, no guidance, and also no context. Make sure as well that you put a little note about where the data is from as well. We're not expecting full academic references or anything like that, but just a URL link or a little statement at the bottom, hidden out of the way somewhere in small text, about where you found the data, whether there are any considerations with the data, that sort of thing. And ask yourself, so what, at every stage. If you create a chart, ask yourself, so what? Does it mean anything? Can we see anything, anything interesting from it? If not, then maybe think about changing your angle of analysis a little bit. I hope that's useful. I'm going to take you through a couple of other successful applications from recent cohorts as well, just to show you what people are producing to be successful. And again, I will share these slides with everyone. I'll send an email out, and I'm off tomorrow, so probably Thursday morning I'll send out a link to these slides so you can download them and check out these dashboards as well. So this was from Lydia, who was successful in DS40 recently. So she's got a master's in maths. She's done a little bit of working as a software tester, then as an analyst, and she came to us looking for a career in data visualization. And she did her dashboard on the Bechdel test. So let me put this on full screen. This was a super interesting data set, and it's basically identifying gender bias in film and television. And what we can see here is some really clear bands at the top. So she's setting the scene immediately, showing us how many films there are in the data set, in the subsequent analysis as well, how many passed the Bechdel test, and the pass rate as well. I'd encourage you to think about how you can demonstrate your knowledge of kind of basic mathematical principles as well. So rather than just always summarizing with absolute numbers like in the volcano dashboard we saw, how can you make the analysis a bit fairer? And I use the example sometimes of a dashboard that we received a few months ago about COVID rates in the US by state. So that's cases and deaths. And the person who sent it in summarized all of the COVID cases and deaths by state in the US. And surprise, surprise, California and Texas appeared top of both cases and deaths. Now, that's not really surprising because they have the highest populations, and you'd assume that those states with the highest populations have the highest incidences of COVID cases and deaths. And I've got a question from Silvana. Are you showing something? I can only see the same dashboard. Can everyone see this new Bechdel test dashboard?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Silvana, I think that it must be a problem with your internet. Okay, so going back to what I was saying, try and demonstrate that you know some basic maths principles. So we're not asking for for pure maths experts, but numeracy is a key component to this job because it is inherently working with numbers. So using percentages is a good way to illustrate analysis. Also, other things like using the COVID example I was just talking about, you could normalize the data. You can find population data quite easily on Wikipedia or places like that, by state in the US. You can join data together in Tableau, and you could even do it at source as well if you wanted to. Bring in some population data and divided into the cases or the deaths as well. So you could then create a cases per 100,000 metric or a deaths per 100,000 or whatever, and that will enable you to compare smaller states against larger states because population is almost taken out of the equation and it's a more level playing field. So think about, is your analysis fair? Is it just stating the obvious, and kind of build on it from there? Other things that she's doing well here is it's a really nice theme. We can see they're all sort of shades of kind of lavender or pink or purple. She's using color consistently here. So we have fail and pass in this line chart. So fail being a sort of lavender, pass being maroon. We've got those same colors in this 100% area chart here underneath. As humans, we associate things which are colored similarly to mean the same thing. So another common thing I see people do is to use the same colors to represent different things. So that can be really confusing. If we see blue in one area in one chart and then blue in another chart related to something completely different, we can assume that those two at first glance mean the same thing, but actually they're dealing with completely separate categories of data. So bear that in mind as well. While we're talking about color, another thing to bear in mind is using red and green also can be confusing because there's a surprising number of people who are red-green colorblind as well. And while you may be able to see the difference, if you send a dashboard out to a client with hundreds or thousands of users, there are going to be a lot of people there who are red-green colorblind and won't be able to distinguish between what you've done. And again, you'll get some emails which you'll have to answer and you have to change your work. So think about things like that. She's using text, emphasizing various important bits that we need to be aware of. So she's got trending downwards here in bold. So our eyes are drawn towards that as well. That's a good technique for grabbing people's attention. And again, some nice big numbers. and just general explanation about what it is we're looking at. And we can see she's included these little information icons as well throughout the dashboard. We can hover on those. And these are a great way to give additional information about the analysis that you're creating. You don't need necessarily to clog up your dashboard with lots of terminology or lots of explanations about things. You can hide it where relevant in these information icons. So that's a really good technique she's used as well. Not sure what's happening with my screen here. Here we go. Sorry, just bear with me. Okay, other things. Chart types. She's used what's known as a slope chart here, which is a great way of comparing two different categories. So here we're seeing different genres of films and the different rates of those films surveyed which pass the Bechdel test or fail it. So it's a great way to immediately see whether values are higher or lower on these two different categories, fail or pass, for each of our genres. And at the end here, we have a why does this all matter section. So this is a really nice illustration of someone saying, so what? I've done all this analysis, but so what? What do we need to take from it? And she's summarized it really nicely in nice, clear, big big numbers. So we're kind of in no doubt really what we should be taking away from this. And she's telling us what she thinks is important, what she's discovered within her data set. She's not leaving it up to us to decide for ourselves. So in summary, good use of bands. She's also chosen an interesting data set. And as you can imagine, we see lots of data sets here at the data school. It's surprising how many people use the same ones. We see a lot of Airbnb data, Netflix data. I'm not trying to discourage you from using those data sets, but they're very, very popular. And I think it's always nice if people demonstrate that they've used a data set that's probably a little bit niche or something that's really interesting, but not that mainstream. It just shows that people have gone that little bit further to find an interesting data set and create some interesting analysis. She's also used color well. I mentioned about at the top, the pass and fail using the same colors. Her tooltips were really nice. You saw those as I was hovering. She's spent some time modifying those and making them look good. She's used percentages as well. The text she's used is to the point and pretty succinct. She hasn't included really long paragraphs of text. And I would encourage you all to use some text in your dashboards, but don't use too much. Okay, as soon as it starts detracting from the visuals, you almost might not bother doing the visuals. You could almost just summarize it all in text. So it should be complementary to the visuals rather than dominating the visuals. She's also done some research about appropriate chart types for the various things that she's trying to show. There is a lot written online about this as well. Visual analytic principles span not only Tableau, they're not a Tableau specific thing. They go across all platforms, and there's a whole school of thought behind all of this. So I'd really recommend you having a little look at that as well. She's used good titles and also consistent fonts. If we were being really picky, she could maybe have spaced out the sections a little bit more. This is a really strong application, and it is, as I say, being quite picky. She could also maybe use dividers just to slice the dashboard into different sections a little bit more clearly. But really, that is splitting hairs. Okay, the next one I was going to look at is by Shreya. She got into DS39. I should also preface all of this by saying that while these dashboards are clearly impressive, both of these individuals were completely new to Tableau beforehand. Okay, and it just shows what can be done with some research online and some and some time and effort, and they're both doing very well as consultants now. So let's have a look at Shreya's dashboard in a little bit more detail. This is a really beautifully designed dashboard, and you could imagine this being an infographic somewhere it's dealing with microplastic pollution, and you could see it as being used as an infographic about the problem, promoting awareness around the problem. So she's used these icons to right up front make it clear as to what. Sorry, the light's just gone off in here. Making it clear right from the outset some of the main topics, main points of consideration to understand. She's got data from several different sites where they surveyed water for microplastic pollution, and we can see them all in the map here. But she's got these interactive buttons on the left-hand side, which we can click and look at them in a bit more detail. Sorry, I think sharing my screen is causing a full screen Tableau to do some strange things, but we can click on each of these individual areas, and the bands underneath update for each one, which is pretty cool. Lots of really nice white space around, so nothing's too cluttered. The charts really jump out, and what we're looking at in terms of the relevant figures, the important figures, it's easy to see. She's also included information buttons as well, so we can understand a little bit more about what's going on. This is a great example of using a bar chart. This is actually a rounded bar chart, which is a little bit more difficult to create, but she hasn't got an axis. She's used labels to show the values, so everything is nice and clear there. And again, with her text, she's put into really accessible chunks, emphasized different words as well. And nothing in there to me is overwhelming, because it's in nice little chunks that we can read through and then move on to the next one. Then we have some further interactivity at the bottom, and we can change the charts and what they're doing. So each of these charts is looking at, so this one's looking at a color of plastics found, different materials here, and all really good techniques. And then finally, again, some really nice concluding thoughts from Shreya, just thinking about what we could consider going forwards, and really what all this is for. So she said, so what? And she's thought that actually this analysis can be used for various things, and also stated some of the benefits of analyzing microplastic pollution. And then right at the end, she's got some little references as to where she got the data from as well. So hopefully that's helped you contextualize a little bit around what we're looking for. And in terms of what she's done, to summarize, the context is really clear. She's kind of explained the key concepts really well. She's used interactivity. She's spaced everything out really nicely as well. She's instructed the user how to interact with her work. So wherever there was interactivity, she's told you to select something or to click on something. She's removed grid lines as well. So Tableau automatically, when you create a chart, adds in grid lines. And it really annoys me. I wish it would give you the option to add them in rather than doing it automatically, because I end up taking them out most of the time straight away. It enables you to have a nice, clear, plain background, which allows the charts to jump out. And she's also referenced the data sources, and her tooltips are good. So something she could improve, and again, it's being really picky. She could improve chart orientation in some cases. So if I scroll down to, where was it? This one here. So this chart is a vertical chart, and we have to kind of twist our heads to see what these headers are. Now, this might be better would definitely have been better if she'd flipped it to being horizontal, because then we wouldn't have to twist our heads to read those titles. Again, absolutely not a deal breaker, and that's me being picky, but that's the kind of thing that we would teach at the data school to make things a little bit easier to understand for people. It's also an iterative process. Now, we've talked about the feedback process, and this is an example from George, who's in DS39, and we've put together this, or he's put together this kind of illustration about his journey getting into the data school. And he chose a Pokemon dashboard for his first one. Now, I know nothing about Pokemon. We get quite a few of them, and I always sort of roll my eyes a little bit when they come in, but because I literally know nothing about it. But I'm starting to learn a little bit more about it now. So he's created this this dashboard, which is very exploratory at the start. So he's basically just summarized this data. And again, I know nothing about it, so I'm looking at it and thinking, so what? What do I take from this? I genuinely don't know. So that was his first version. This is his second version. He's jazzed it up a little bit with the Pokemon logo at the top, but really it's still quite exploratory as well. So we gave him some feedback, probably along those lines, and he then comes back with his third iteration. He's provided a lot more context now. You could say maybe it's a bit text heavy because you've got to read through loads of text before you get down to the actual charts underneath. But he's providing a little bit more instruction to his user by including these boxes here. So then he came back to us with this, which again is looking kind of more professional now. It's mainly kind of, I guess, mainly aesthetic, the differences he's made. He has put some aims for his viz at the top as well. And then finally, this is his final version. So everything is much clearer. And based on what he stated at the top, we can go in and have a look through it and understand more about the context of his particular subject. So some tips. Analysis, this is so important. And you could create a great looking dashboard, but it could be very light on analysis. And we want to see how you've picked up Tableau. We're not expecting you to be experts. You've seen with some of the examples this evening about what can be achieved in a relatively short space of time. But really the analytical content is just as important as the presentation, or the presentation of the dashboard, because that tells us whether someone will be a good consultant or not. Our consultants are always asked to dive into client data. So you want to be asking questions of the data. People who ask questions and who are naturally curious tend to do really well at the role, because they're always wanting to solve problems and find out things about the data and show people what it is that they found out. So bear that in mind. Numeracy, I've talked about this, examples of using percentages and normalizing the data. As Stephanie mentioned, it's so important to choose a data set which you are interested in. Don't use fake data. It's really quite boring. You're not going to be invested in it. And also, we seem to be getting a few dashboards more recently from YouTube tutorials. There's one on human resources data. There's one on, I think it's car accidents in the UK. Don't submit a dashboard that you've just built by following along on YouTube, because that doesn't tell us anything about your analytical side. And we will probably just tell you to go and create another one, but choose a data set which you're interested in. You know, if you're interested in sport, music, current affairs, whatever, there are loads of free data sets out there, and a simple Google search normally is your friend. Don't forget to contextualize. So give clear instructions and and also make sure that you clarify any terminology that may not be familiar with your user. Don't use auto size dashboards. So this is where you can choose the size of a dashboard in Tableau, and there's a setting called automatic. Now, what may look good on your computer might look terrible on someone else's with an auto sizing dashboard, because in my experience at clients, some clients have a mixture of really nice widescreen monitors and those old school square ones. If you create a dashboard on a really nice widescreen monitor, and then someone opens it up on an old square one, it's all going to get squashed and it's going to look terrible. So use a fixed size for your dashboards, I would recommend. Create sections. That's a really useful tip, a way to split out your analysis and guide your user through what you're doing. And use questions and titles which can guide your user and encourage them to dive in and answer those questions. And make sure you tell a story with your data as well. I wouldn't advise using the story points functionality in Tableau. Use a conventional dashboard, but make sure you're telling a story with your data. Take your user on a journey through it. And then look at the successful applications websites. Stephanie mentioned this earlier. I think I've got it up here somewhere. This is an example of what did it take to get into DS40. We have these for the last, for all the cohorts really. And what we have here is, so let's take Asha to start with. Her first application dashboard was on Marvel superheroes. That's the one on the right hand side. And then her final dashboard for her final interview was on Los Angeles crime. And again, you can have a look, and there are links to all of those, and there's links to the people on LinkedIn as well, so you can connect with them. You can ask some questions if you're interested as well. For the final interview, we give everyone the same data set. So everyone for DS40 here had LA crimes. So it's a really interesting way to see how people navigated that data set and how they approached the analysis. And here's Lydia. We saw her Bechdel test example, and we can see her final dashboard as well next to it, and so on. But you can go and have a look at these for all of our recent cohorts and just see the kind of thing people are creating. And with Tableau Public, again, you can download these dashboards and pull them apart. So if I flick over back to one of these, we have this download icon in the top right corner. We can click download Tableau workbook, and what that will do is download the file itself, and you can click on it and open it up in Tableau Desktop or Tableau Public and pull it apart so you can understand exactly what it is that the people have done. Okay, and explain all concepts thoroughly and use info buttons if you can. We've included some resources here as well. And Makeover Monday is fantastic. It's a weekly social data project. It's run by Andy Kriebel, who is our global head coach. So if you submit and take part regularly, he will see you. So it's a good way to get on his radar. Basically, what happens is we go to the website. There's a whole load of stuff on here, but Andy every week chooses a data set and puts it in the data set section. You can see here there's data going back 8 years. There's over 300 data sets here, so it's a really good way to explore and have a look. They're about completely random things. We can see the latest one is daily sea ice extent here. And the cool thing is you can go onto Twitter and look at what people have been creating as well. So if I go to Twitter, logged in here as a data school, if I go into the search box and say hashtag Makeover Monday, we can see here what people have been creating, because they published Tableau Public and then they publish a tweet about it as well. And we can see how Andy approached this. Here's someone here, Iris van Bussel, who's created a dashboard on the same data set. if you give 100 people the same data set, they'll all come up with different things. So it's a really good way to see how people approach the same analysis that you're looking at as well. So I'd recommend you diving into that. YouTube, Tableau Tim and Andy Kriebel. So Tim, he's left the Information Lab now, but he was a colleague for around 8 years. He has some really excellent content. It's all on Tableau as well, explanatory videos, how-to videos. Likewise with Andy Kriebel. Talked about Makeover Monday on Twitter. You can also use the hashtag DataFam, and that will filter for any Tableau related material. Stephanie's talked about Viz of the Day. That's a really great resource. Shows you the art of the possible. Successful applications I've talked about. And there's also a link here to a follow along session. So if you're absolutely brand new to Tableau, it's a good way just to get going. There's a YouTube video from Andy Kriebel, which was published last year. It's about rats in New York, and the data set is also available. So you can download that data and also have a go at producing what Andy does. And it's a good way to get you a little bit of a head start in terms of understanding how Tableau works. I've also done a slide with some data set suggestions as well. There are loads more than this. These are just ones that kind of came to mind. Some really interesting, diverse ranges of data in here. Some of them you have to create logins for, but it's all free. I think with the data search, you are required to pay for some data sets, but others are free. But have an explore around these when I send it out, and hopefully it'll give you some ideas. And yeah, that's kind of all of the hints that I've got for you. Hopefully that's helped a little bit with giving you some ideas about how to approach your application to the data school. I'll happily take any questions now. I can't see any in the chat, but feel free to either unmute yourselves or write a question in the chat. And we've got 7 minutes left. I don't mind staying a few minutes longer if necessary. I see a comment from Lubomira. I just got the book Makeover Monday and I found it very interesting and informative. That's great. It's a cool book. So anyone got any questions?
Can I ask quickly a question?
Sure.
So
Absolutely.
I really need, I followed all these instructions, but I really want to do a short course, and I've done some research. There is some on Tableau, which I can pay for 1 year course. Then there is some on Coursera, LinkedIn Learning. So which one would you recommend? Because I really need, before I start, to do some course and get some idea what can I do in Tableau. Just starting like this, at least for me, it's not really working. So it's very interesting. I watch Andy's videos and the Makeover Monday, etc. But for me to start really creating some dashboards, etc., I need to do a short course. So which one would you recommend?
I don't know them kind of intimately, but I would suggest that anything by Coursera and Udemy would be good. I haven't seen the LinkedIn Learning one, but Coursera and Udemy generally produce really good content, and it all goes through a rigorous certification process in order for them to publish it. So I would suggest those two probably would be a good idea if that's what you are looking to do.
Thank you. Thank you.
Question from Anis in the chat. Any recommended site to get clean data to reduce the time cleaning? Not really. I mean, I think you'll find in any of these, as it says on the screen, any of these will have some really clean data and some data that isn't that clean. I would suggest having a good look for a data set that interests you, and I would avoid data unless you're comfortable cleaning it. I would avoid data which involves a lot of cleansing, because we will teach you to do that. We're not expecting you to use Alteryx or anything in the application process for the reasons that Stephanie outlined. But in order to to save yourself some time, I would look for as clean a data set as you can find, and it will absolutely be possible to find those within those links and in other places on the internet as well. A question from Ewan. I've seen other companies advertise they teach their graduates how to use programming languages like Python, SQL, and R. Would we have that same opportunity at the data school, or would we focus just on Tableau and Alteryx? So the answer is that we don't do anything with Python and R, although we do have some really expert users within the company, and they've started a Python club which meets once a month, and what they're trying to do is complete weekly challenges from Alteryx, which are on the Alteryx website, in Alteryx, in SQL, in Python, and in R as well. And that's kind of free for anyone to join. In terms of SQL, we teach SQL as part of the training period, as that's an important skill to learn for clients. It's a really widely used programming language within industry. We also touch on AWS and Snowflake as well, and you're welcome to do the certifications in those, although they're not compulsory. We will support you to do all of those. But really, the idea behind the Information Lab is that we wanted to be genuine experts in a few software and a few softwares, and the more that you introduce into the training, the less time you have for each one. So it kind of dilutes people's skills and abilities. So it's really us wanting to make people as good as possible with the tools that we are passionate about. SQL is certainly in there. We do some Power BI as well in the training, so you get a pretty well-rounded education in terms of how to use these tools. But Python and R is not something we specialize in. Deepika, if our area of interest doesn't have real-world data available due to confidentiality, can we opt for fictitious data from Kaggle? Yes, you can. There's nothing to stop you from doing that. I would say, though, try and use real data if you can. It's generally a bit more interesting and meaningful because it's real. But if you absolutely want to do a particular subject and you have to use fictitious data for it, then go for it. But just make a note that it is actually fictitious as well. Question from Ashvin. Thank you, Luke. I was hoping to apply for DS42. Would you say tomorrow is too late to apply and get a round of feedback? No, I think we'll be able to get you some feedback if you apply tomorrow. And yeah, we aim to do that within a day or two. Question from Holly to everyone. Could we use data we have collected ourselves for the application? Absolutely. I think it's a great way to stand out from the crowd as well. We've seen people more recently create dashboards on their travels. Someone went traveling with their partner and created a data set on as they were going, as how far they went, how expensive food was in various places, that sort of thing. It's super interesting. Another one that stands out was a colleague who's left now, and she actually moved over here from Hong Kong, and Hong Kong obviously is very, very humid. So she did an audit of her wardrobe and tried to figure out what clothes she would need to ditch from Hong Kong and what ones, and what she would need to buy, what clothes that she had would be suitable for both climates, that sort of thing. So that was another one that really, really stands out in my mind. So yes, 100%. Anyone else got any questions? Question from Joseph. How much can you infer or extrapolate using the data, i.e. reasons for best teams not being the best in defending stats could be due to the fact that they're attacking often? Yeah, I think you can make statements like that, but always try and back it up with fact if you can. If you can't back it up with fact, then make note of that where you're saying it. Okay, don't try and make statements which are kind of judgment calls based on what you think is happening. Again, put yourself into the situation of working with a client. They're very interested in what's black and what's white. Is it true, is it not? Their data, they're not interested in what people think might be happening, unless they specifically ask for that. But just try and back everything up with fact if you can. Anything else we can help with? 2 new messages. Okay.
Hi, I just wanted to ask a quick question. Basically, I'm thinking, I'm not too sure about what type of question I should ask, so I can do like a good dashboard.
Okay.
I was thinking about doing something sports related and using some type of data around, I don't know if you're into the Premier League, but around financial fair play. But I
Okay.
don't know how to translate that into a question, so I can see how I can visualize the data, but I'm not kind of sure how I can actually tell a story off of that, or how.
Okay.
Yeah, I just need a little bit of help with that.
Sure. I mean, I always say to people to think about the W questions. So who, what, when, where, why. It doesn't start with a W, but how. Those sorts of questions, they can help you kind of narrow down an angle of analysis. You could look on Tableau Public. There are a ton of dashboards on there around the Premier League and football in general, to be honest. So you could look at those for for inspiration. I would say as well, there's nothing wrong with getting inspiration from other people's work as well. So Tableau Public is inherently a learning platform. It's designed to help people see what's possible with Tableau and what's, and it could be a portfolio for you as well. A lot of employers now really look at your Tableau portfolio before asking you for interviews and things. But it's perfectly fine to go and look at that. And if you get inspired by a particular person, a particular dashboard you've seen, by all means use ideas from that. Obviously don't copy it, but use ideas from it to make yours. But you put a little note saying inspired by whichever one it is that you've seen. But yeah, I assume you're a big football fan anyway. I'm not a particularly huge football fan. I don't really know a great deal about it, but I guess I would probably approach that by trying to think of what I would like to see. If there's a particular angle of analysis that hasn't been done yet, then maybe try and fill that gap. You can see what's out there already. Ask friends as well, see what they think, that sort of thing.
Thank you so much.
No worries. Question from Jyoti. My question here is, if we've already submitted our dashboard and got your feedback, and if we are not able to submit our dashboard by the closing date, do we still have a chance to apply for the next cohort? Yes, you do. If you let me know, let Stephanie know that you are unable to submit a final version by then, we can always put your application into the next cohort as well. Everyone mute themselves who's there, please. Thanks. Okay, got time for, I reckon, 1 or 2 more questions if anyone's got one.
Yeah, I just had a quick question about feedback.
Sure.
So when we submit or send through a draft of our visualization to you guys, would we get like multiple rounds of feedback, or is it just like an initial piece of feedback?
In theory, the feedback is kind of infinite. In practice, you'll probably get a couple of rounds, something like that. But the main criteria for getting feedback is that there's been a marked improvement from your first version to your second version. If we give you feedback on your initial submission, you then go away and submit a second one, but you haven't paid attention to that feedback, or you haven't implemented it, or there hasn't been a marked improvement in your dashboard, then we'll probably suggest to you that you take some time off, and practice a bit more and apply for another cohort. But if there's been an improvement and there's still things that we think you could improve on, maybe we don't want to overwhelm you with feedback the first time, give you the most important bits at first to change, and then when you submit an improved version, we can then follow that up with some more minor points which would help round it off into a more complete dashboard. Then yeah, absolutely, we'll do that. But in reality, we don't really have the feedback. We don't have the resource, sorry, you know, to provide 6 or 7 rounds of feedback to everyone. It takes too much time for us and for you. So we'll be looking to make that feedback as informative and to the point as possible, and looking to you to make an improvement. When you submit your second version, again, some people submit, you know, their second iteration and it's awesome, in which case we'll look to maybe put them through to the video call stage. Then if there are still some bits that you need to do, we may give you some more feedback as well. So it kind of depends on how you react to that feedback.
Okay, thank you.
No worries. Good question. Anything else? Okay, cool. Well, we've gone slightly over time. I'll call it a day here. Thank you very much for coming. It's much appreciated, and it's good to meet all of you. I will send out the slides in the next couple of days, so you should have them by Thursday. And yeah, good luck with all your applications, if indeed you are going to apply, and hopefully see you in real life sometime.
Thank you.